friends, it's Tracey from Tea Time with Tracey and Crew, or company, or friends, or whatever. I wanted to make a weekly reading update. I read some books. I had a good reading week this week. Here's some of the books that I read. These bad boys. They were some doozies. I'm about to make something. Let me just throw this in the pan quick. And I need to do two birds kind of thing because it's been that kind of day. Ooh. It's a Monday and my kids are at school. And oh, just a minute. Okay, yeah, I got the fire going in the kitchen. It's nice out. Today's the solar eclipse. But my kids are at school. I'm going to make something easy for supper. My wash machine is off kilter. Oh, for heaven's sakes. Just a minute. No? Well, it starts and stops and starts and stops. Okay. I'm going to turn this back on. I'm just going to scramble this up. This is for kids. I'm not making it big and fancy. Onion powder, garlic powder, salt and pepper. Fine. That pot is just water in it. I'm going to make the noodles after the kids get home from school. But the books I want to talk about. Let me just do this so I can get a picture. No particular order. I read this. I've had this for about a year. I've never read it. It's the first book in a series. I just bought the first book to see if it's something. I know somebody was talking about it, said it was a good paranormal series, romance, blood alliance series. Anyways, this is about a world where vampires and lichen or werewolves are like the main species of the world. Humans have no rights. They're more like pets, food source, or other carnal urges, if you know what I'm saying. They're trained to be subservient to vampires or lichen. However, there is a faction of lichen and vampires that want to establish some rights for the humans. But there's a whole political system in this. This is not a very big book. I did enjoy this book. This follows one young lady who has been trained. She has a certain kind of blood that's very appealing to vampires and lichen, like rare blood type. So she is trained to be completely subservient, and she goes up on the docket to be purchased. A high-ranking vampire buys her, and she's scared to death. Like, she's just young. She's, I don't know, 20 years old, 18, 19 years old, something like that. I don't know. And anyways, he takes her back to his mansion or whatever, and isn't what she thought he was going to be. She's still subservient. She doesn't trust him. She's scared to look him in the eye. She's scared of everything because she has seen the horrors that happen to humans if they don't listen. Anyways, turns out this fella is part of that faction, but she doesn't know that. She doesn't know anything about it. She has no knowledge of human history or anything like that, so she just thinks that she's just a vessel, like it's part of the food chain, that's what it is. But he's trying to slowly integrate her into knowing human history, and it's just the tip of the iceberg, I think, with this this series. I don't know how many books are in the series. I enjoyed it. It wasn't, but it was pretty good. There's, like I say, a political system in here that you just get a little taste of. So if I was to get the other books, I might get the next book at some point just to try it to see how much more it develops. On Goodreads, I gave it like a 3 out of 5. I enjoyed it, but yeah, I think maybe as the series goes on, it will get better and better. I don't know. So that one. This one is by Adelaide Forrest. Oh no, I didn't. Bloodied Hands. This is in a series too. That crime family, I forget. Anyways, it's not the first. Is it the first book? It is the first book. This follows. It's like mafia romance. This follows a young woman. She's, I think, 26. It flashes back to when she was a teenager. When she was a teenager, she had this boyfriend she lost her virginity to, the main guy in this book. And she loved him wholeheartedly. 16, okay? He ends up tragically dumping her and humiliating her when she was a teenager. And she's never recovered. Like, she's been traumatized by that. So she's never let anybody get close to her. Fast forward 10 years, she is a blogger. She likes to cook and take pictures and blog about it and stuff like that. And she bought her house. She saved up money and bought this rundown house to fix it up. She fixed up the kitchen and her bedroom. Those are the only two fixed up in the house. She's going to work slowly towards doing up her house. And she's an independent woman. But she's, she often thinks, oh, she's still traumatized by what happened 10 years ago. And anyways, one day she is going to the bank. She likes to run. She was going to the bank after she was done running. She was going to go to the bank to do an errand or get money out or whatever. I forget. While she's there, the bank is getting robbed, or two or three people come in with guns to rob the bank. And she's terrified. After a minute or so, these gunmen recognize her. They have the gun right up to her face and realize who she is. And she is nobody. She's just like a 26-year-old woman that, is blogging about food. And they say, are you so-and-so? And she said, yes. Well, make sure you tell him we didn't know that you were in here. And they back out of the bank, terrified. And she's like, who? Tell who? I don't know who you're talking about. And they say, this guy. And she, of course, knows who this guy is because that's the person that, knocked her down a peg when she was a teenager. Anyways, she feels like she's grown up enough to go drive to his house to confront him about this. Why do these criminals know who you are? She pulls up to his house and there's guards at a gate with guns. And she's like, what? She hasn't talked to him since, and she had no idea what he's been up to at all. But for some reason she knew he was in the area and this is where he lived. She ends up going to see this man, and at first the guards were like, oh, no, just step away. You're just another one of the floozies he brings here. He never, dates or, does the same woman twice. You know what I mean? Just talking smack to her. Then they realize who she is and they let her in and they're like, oh, scared and stuff for their lives. Anyway, she goes up to meet this guy and turns out he has eyes on her. He's had eyes on her this whole time. And she's thrown back by this, but she's not aware of this. He's like, you've come to me. This must mean that you're mine. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm coming to get you tonight at 7 o'clock. She's like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You're not coming back into my life like this. Absolutely not. She rushes away and it goes from there. So I enjoyed this book. Again, I gave this 1 of 3. What really tipped me to not going higher than that was teenage heartbreak from 16 years old. I've just outgrown any kind of teenage stories. I know I still have some in my TBR pile, that books I have I will read. But I'm just like, a heartbreak at 16 and you're that traumatized and not letting anybody in your life ever because you were dumped at 16 by a person that you lost your virginity to. I don't get it. That just was over my head. Like, that was just too much for me. Good book, though. Like, it was a nice, kind of smutty, alpha hole kind of book, but, The Whistling. I finally got this. read. I had this on my March TBR, never got to it, so I read it. This is the first book I read this month. And this is Subtle Horror. This is about a young lady. She had some family trauma and she wants to go and start anew somewheres. She decides to go to be a nanny on this isolated island off the coast of somewheres in the UK, like Scotland Island, some place like that. Anyways, this is way back in the 1800s, I believe. Just trying to think. I believe so. A long time ago. Long time ago. Wooden boats and all that jazz. And she goes, and it's just a small island. There's only a few, like a small town on it, and that's it. And they only get boats not every day. You know what I mean? So she decides to go be this nanny to this child who doesn't speak. She's not aware that she doesn't speak when she gets there. And the townspeople are looking at her like, oh, you must be the new nanny. And they're looking at her sideways a little bit. But she's brought up to the big house. It's a big, like the biggest house on the island. And turns out there used to be a little boy who met a tragic end. And long story short, it's a big old manor. But at nighttime she hears whistling and other noises up in the attic, and she goes and there's nothing there. And then the people on this island, there's a few little twisty turny stories that go together with these people, and you're not sure who is who and what is what. Is this a haunting, or is this, what is this? So it's a subtle horror. I really liked this book though, because, and this is Rebecca Neatley's debut novel. I felt like it would be a Tim Burton movie or something in my head. It was a dark, gloomy island with a big old manor with oil lanterns and unpaved roads and long dresses, and it was very atmospheric, I guess. And I would recommend this. This is really good. I think I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed it. It's not scary to me at all. The story was interesting. Kind of heartbreaking in some aspects. And anyways, the whistling. Enjoyed it. This book, A Thousand Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. Now, I'm a big Tilly Cole fan. I've read a lot of her books, not all of her books. But all the books I have read from her have been like dark romance, really messed up. Some of them were the Hades Hangman series. I read Sick Fox. That's where I started this channel from. My very first video was about Sick Fox. And the Deadly Virtues series and the Scarred Souls series. Those very dark and disturbing kind of series. This is a YA book. And nothing against YA. I just don't generally read YA. It's just not my cup of tea. That's all. This is YA, but I wanted to read it because it's Tilly Cole. And people say this book makes you cry. I'm going to turn this down. That's turning it up. This book is supposed to make you cry, and I've yet to have a book really make me cry. Well, I've had a couple. Exodus kind of made me teary. And another one. I forget. Anyways, this is about a story about childhood, love, friendship, families. Well, okay, there's a young child named Poppy, and God, what the heck's the boy's name? Rune. A little boy named Rune, and they live next to each other in Litchfield. Litchfield is their last name. Somewhere's in the States. I knew it. I just read this the other day. Anyways, they grow up together because they live beside one another. He's from Norway, so he has a bit of an accent. I listened to this on Audible too because it was free. I do have the paperback, obviously, but I listened to it on Audible. Highly recommend. And they grow up together. You see them when they're little. You see them when they're preteens. You see them when they're teenagers. And you see them when they're young adults. Well, late teens. And there's heartbreak from the rooter to the tutor. There's heartbreak from when they're children, and there's heartbreak when they're older. It's not just heartbreak between them. There's other loss in the family, as happens in everybody's family. And there's unexpected things happening. But the anguish I felt between these two young people, that's what hurt. It felt like my chest went, that's what it felt like. And yeah, I did get a little teary. I mean, I'm not a big crier anyways, but I'm just like, wow. The very, 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 very end of this, though, very, very end of it, made it all okay for me, because you can't get much better than that. Anyways, oh gosh, what's going on here? All right, last but not least I'm going to talk about today, because I've talked long enough, is this one, Best Friends by Lauren Donner. This is book 15 in the New Species series. She writes other series too, and I've read some other books, but I don't have any of her books. I'm so tempted to buy them because I love having this whole collection. Anyways, I've read every single one, just like the Cressley Cole's Immortals After Dark. This is right in that realm. Loved it. And I absolutely love this. This just dropped last year, I think. And I bought it right off the press, but I didn't read it. And I read this. This is about, quickly I'll say, it's about two best friends, two young women. One moved to this little dinky town where nobody would ever move to, but she moved there because she wanted to escape her annoying upbringing. And she works as a waitress at this little diner. Her best friend works at this diner. I'm not going to say too much about this. New species are genetically altered people that were government experimented on years ago, but they have animal DNA. So they have some features, you know, cat, lion people might have shaggy hair and high cheekbones and the cat eyes, but they're still people, but there's animal DNA. So they're big, muscly, intimidating, could be scary if you're whatever. Anyways, the town that these girls live in are just outside of a place called the reservation. There's homeland and there's reservation. Reservation's on one part of the country, homeland's on another part. You know what I mean? Or state or whatever. Anyways, this little town is neighboring the reservation. And sometimes the new species, they have enforcers, they have whatever. They go to this little diner to have dinner. Anyways, one of the waitresses had kind of a crush on one of the new species. She was too intimidated to talk to him. She'll go and serve the table food and stuff, but she thinks that he's, you know, a hot piece of ass kind of thing. Anyways, the other girl is deathly afraid of animals and new species, and not because they're new species, but she's terrified of animals, so she, whatever. Anyways, one of these days while the new species are there getting their lunch, two armed robbers come in and they intend on shooting these new species because they're anti-new species and they think they're the devil or whatever. Anyways, the one that has the crush on one of the new species, she is from a rural area, grew up on a farm, knows how to shoot a gun, knows how to whatever. She bends down and grabs the boss's shotgun and pow pow and shoots the two robbers. But in the meantime, she ends up getting shot. So the bad guys are shot, not necessarily killed, but shot at that time. And the new species, you know, settle the scene. But they take her because she's been shot. She saved them. She wasn't aware that they had guns, which they did, but, you know, they wouldn't have, you know, she just handled it as soon as they came in. They swoop her up and take her to the reservation, which she's never been. People can't just go there. It's unauthorized kind of thing, but they have great doctors and stuff. And it goes from there. But the guy that she has a crush on is one of the species, you know, decides he's the one that goes with her. Oh, sorry, my husband just came in from barbecuing. Anyways, I forget what I said, but the story will go from there. But this book is almost like two stories in one, because the potential love interest is the guy that she has a crush on. And then, like, Then you get a little bit about the friend that's terrified of animals and where she comes in and how things go. I was not aware of that when I read this book. I thought, well, the story seems like it's wrapping up and it's like half over. What's going on from here? It's still all one big story, but the last half of the book is more focused on the other friend. And I just loved it. 5 stars, the whole series. It might be corny and cheesy to some people, but I loved it. And yeah, I used to have a Kobo, and I have her other books on my Kobo, which I haven't used in years. But I want to get them in paperback so I can read them like I read this, and it was just so immersive and lovely. And yeah, would recommend. So anyways, those are the books I'm talking about that I read this past week. I am working on a couple other books. I won't talk about them now. It'll be at another one, but I just wanted to do that. I just shut that hamburger off. I'm going to finish working with it and go back to my other channel. But thanks so much for joining me. I know it's not your run-of-the-mill kind of book thing, but I wanted to get that done. My laundry's going. My kids, will all be handled when they get home because I got stuff to do this evening too. So anyways, I'm going to say peace, love, and happiness today and every single day. Please like, share, and subscribe if you so choose, but if not, that's okay too. I still love ya. I still want all the happiness in the world for each and every one of you out there. I certainly do. I really, really honest and truly do. Yes, I do. So, okay guys, with that, I'm going to say have a good night or have a good morning, and I will. See you sometime soon. Bye. Boink.